Welcome to Revenge with Romeo TV. Here, we tell stories of revenge, betrayal, pain, and secrets that cut deep. Stories that make you feel, question, and understand the weight of choices and consequences. Every story is about life, trust, and what happens when it is broken. Today, on Reverend Romeo TV, I bring you a story called The Family Secret. It is about a man named Zyra, whose life of trust will be shattered, whose family hides a secret that will change everything. This is his story. Zyra's life seemed ordinary. He went about his days like any other man, working, eating, laughing with his family, believing that trust was safe. He thought the walls of his home were a shelter from the troubles of the world. He believed that nothing could touch the life he had built. Then one day, something changed. A letter appeared, old, forgotten, hidden in a drawer no one had opened for years. The handwriting was familiar, but the words carried an unease he could not explain. Zyra read slowly. "If anyone finds out, the consequences will be mine alone." The sentence was simple, yet it weighed on him like a stone in his chest. He couldn't ignore it. Something had been hidden from him, something that had been waiting all these years to reveal itself. He began searching. Small things he had overlooked before now seemed significant. A photograph tucked behind others, letters that seemed meaningless at the time, scraps of paper with strange notes. They formed a pattern, a trail leading to one name, Vex. Vex. Zyra had trusted him completely. He had shared laughter, secrets, moments of joy. He had never doubted Vex for a second, and now every memory with him began to twist and turn in Zyra's mind. The smiles, the words, the kindness, they all felt planned, calculated, manipulative. He remembered the little things he had ignored. Vex's constant interest in family matters. The questions that seemed casual, but now felt probing. The subtle suggestions that had led to mistakes and misfortune. At the time, they had seemed harmless. Now they made sense as pieces of a much larger plan. Zyra's emotions were a storm. Shock, anger, grief, they all hit at once. The accident that took his uncle, the near collapse of the family business, the whispered rumors and family disputes that had seemed trivial, all of it was no longer coincidence. It was deliberate. He stared at the letters and photographs, trying to make sense of it. How long had this been going on? How long had Vex hidden the truth? Why betray a family that trusted him completely? The questions weighed heavily on him. Anger simmered, but so did caution. He wanted to confront Vex, to yell, to demand answers, but there was a voice in his mind telling him to wait, to observe, to learn everything first. Revenge without knowledge was dangerous. Revenge without understanding could destroy him as much as it would destroy Vex. Zyra didn't sleep that night. The letter lay on the table, the paper worn by age, visible ink that seemed to echo the past he had once disregarded. He stared at the words, feeling each moment echo in his mind. If discovered, his consequences would be mine alone. Those words never left his mind. Morning arrived slowly, but Zyra was already awake before the sun hit the windows. He weighed his thoughts, torn between anger and doubt. A part of him wished there was some mistake. The letters had another meaning, or perhaps it was just Vex the culprit. But deep inside, another voice whispered. The evidence was too clear, folded the letter carefully, and slipped it into his pocket. Today, Zyra would confront Vex, not to blame him yet, not yet, just to watch, listen, and understand the man he had trusted for so many years. Later that afternoon, Zyra returned to the restaurant where he and Vex often met. It was filled with familiar memories, but today, the air felt different, wilder. Vex sat at the same table, looking the same as always, calm and relaxed. He even smiled at Zyra. "Zyra," Vex said warmly, "you look tired. Rough night?" Zyra smiled hesitantly, putting on a small smile. Something like that. For a moment, they talked about the everyday things, work, family, the usual pleasantries. But now, every word felt calculated. Every smile felt rehearsed. Zyra scrutinized him. Was this the face of a man shrouded in secrecy? Was this the same man who stood by him during celebrations and tragedies? It was hard to believe. Yet Zyra found the letters telling a different story. On one instance, Vex leaned back and asked, "How's the family business doing?" The question seemed unremarkable, but Zyra sensed something he had never seen before. Vex's eyes were sparking slightly, waiting patiently for an answer. A chill ran down Zyra's spine. This wasn't curiosity or simply curiosity. It was calculation. "Zyra," he said, voice calm, "why do you ask?" Zyra looked at him again, trying to make him speak the truth. "I just want to know," he said, "do you believe secrets always remain hidden?" Zyra closed his eyes slightly. "I'm afraid it's true," he admitted. "I believe secrets always remain hidden, as long as no one digs too deep." The answer shook Zyra. Vex knew something he should not keep quiet, and he knew it would only grow darker. Behind every betrayal is a story of its own, and Zyra was about to uncover the one that would change everything. Zyra left the restaurant consumed with worries. The conversation with Vex revealed he was hiding something, and his tense reaction when secrets were mentioned suggested he was not an innocent man. Back home, Zyra revisited the old letter and began digging further into family records, discovering an old photograph of Vex, who appeared to be watching the gathering from afar, although his expression was strange. What Zyra found was unexpected. An old photograph depicting an uncle standing proudly with others during a family gathering. But the person in the center, Vex, was not the warm figure he remembered. Instead, he seemed cold, uninviting, and distant. As he carefully studied the photograph, the words, "Everything begins tonight," seemed to echo in Zyra's mind. Guided by the coldness of Vex's presence in the photos, Zyra began to piece together a disturbing story. He realized Vex had been there all along before the business crisis, before family arguments, and before the horrific accident. Shattered by the truth, he now knew the betrayal must be far deeper than he previously thought, and he was determined to expose it no matter the danger. This was not just manipulation or destruction, it was a truth he was about to uncover, one that would shatter his family's foundations. His breath quickened as the coldness of Vex's role became clearer, but he held firm to the truth. For Zyra, this was no small matter. It was about truth and justice, something far deeper than his growing suspicion. If Vex had planned the catastrophe he had led his family to, he would not stop until he exposed the truth and set things right. Zyra's nerves were on edge as he searched for answers, knowing he would face danger, but also hope for healing. In the end, Zyra's journey had uncovered the dark truth that would forever change his family's life. Zyra couldn't see the past the same way anymore. The once-upon-time photo resting beside his uncle's letter urged him to confront the truth about his uncle's death, which everyone believed to be an accident. His uncle's passing. For years, they had been told it's just an accident, a late-night tragedy on a lonely road. But Zyra wasn't convinced. His mind was resistant to the easy explanation. His uncle and Vex had been close, which might shed light on the truth. Zyra found the important file regarding the accident when searching through records connected to the family and business. The report stated the car had lost control on a wet, stormy night, crashing into a barrier, and there were no visible witnesses. A straightforward accident. What Zyra saw was the time staring him in the face. The accident happened at 10:45 p.m. That was crazy. Why had Vex written "Everything begins tonight" onto the photo just moments before? What happened during that hour? He was left in shock after phone calls from Vex, urging him to come quickly. Something had changed, and something had been hidden. Zyra could only think of one reason for Vex's presence that night: the accident before it even happened. As the truth burst like a bomb, Zyra felt angered and betrayed. Years of heartache and devastation led many to believe that death was fate. But Zyra knew his family was hiding something important. Finally, his curiosity led him to a revelation. Vex had known about the accident before it took place. Zyra confronted this revelation, feeling overwhelmed to the core. As the truth surfaced, Zyra understood how deep the betrayal was, and yet another layer of darkness revealed itself. In the end, Zyra knew he would confront Vex to reveal the truth and to end the darkness that had enveloped their world. Zyra had a difficult night. The accident report haunted him, numbers echoing silent accusations. A truth was slowly coming alive. The line between reality and deception twisted like the fingers of a fateful hand. Was this just another tragedy? An unnoticed accident? In the file, he found a name: Marcus Hale, a man who had called emergency services shortly after the road crash. According to the report, he had gone away before police arrived. No one thought much of it, but now Zyra might be the only one who knows the truth. He called Marcus by name and began to search for him. Found a small repair garage, the same place where Marcus worked. Zyra went to the garage and walked in. A man in his late 50s, with rusted tools and smelly oil, was working on a car. "Is this Marcus Hale?" he asked. Marcus looked up, eyes troubled. "No," he responded slowly. Zyra stood there, touched by the words. "You saw that night, the crash," Marcus said slowly. Zyra nodded. "And you saw something else, too." Marcus spoke softly, as if battling something inside himself. "You saw another vehicle there." Zyra understood the words. "A black SUV," Marcus said, "and there was someone standing beside it." Zyra's heartbeat pumped faster. "Was it Vex?" he asked. Marcus looked at him hesitantly. "What do you mean?" Marcus slowly turned toward the garage door, as if checking for anyone else nearby. Then he spoke. "When I drove by that road, it was already happened. The car was scenarios, but something was off." The man spoke in whispers. "There was another vehicle there, too. Zyra's eyes widened. What kind of vehicle? Marcus hesitated. It was a black SUV, he said slowly. Zyra locked his eyes on the man. You were there too, Marcus. Marcus's face turned dark. But I was there. I was there to let you move on. Zyra's eyes filled with tears. The truth was darker than he thought. This story takes place in a fictional town, and the characters were fictional. You should never use this story for any real-life situation, nor involve any of its characters in real-life scenarios. After leaving Marcus's garage, Zyra sat in his car for a long time without starting the engine. The words he had just heard kept repeating in his mind. A black SUV, Vex standing beside it. For years, Vex had stood beside the family pretending to share their grief. Now, Zyra knew that the man had been there the night everything fell apart. But knowing the truth was not enough. Zyra needed proof, real proof that no lie could escape. Because if he confronted Vex without evidence, the man would simply deny everything. Vex was too clever, too careful. He had hidden the truth for years. Zyra had to make him reveal it himself. That night, Zyra began planning. First, he visited the old family office. Most of the records had been moved or archived, but the security system still stored years of backup data. It took hours of searching before Zyra finally found something interesting. A parking record from years ago, the night of the accident. One vehicle had been registered leaving the office garage very late that night. A black SUV. The name attached to the vehicle made Zyra's heart beat faster. Vex. Now, the story Marcus told had support. But Zyra wanted more. The next day, Zyra called Vex. His voice sounded calm, almost friendly. Hey, Zyra said on the phone, it's been a while since we talked properly. Let's meet tonight. There was a brief pause before Vex answered. Of course, Vex said casually. Same place? Yes, Zyra replied. The restaurant. The same table. The same place where they had spoken before. But this meeting would be different. This time, Zyra would not be watching quietly. This time, he would begin pushing Vex toward the truth. That evening, Vex arrived wearing his usual confident smile. Zyra, he said, shaking his hand, you seem different lately. Something on your mind? Zyra sat down slowly. Maybe, he said. They ordered drinks and talked about normal things for a few minutes. Work, the family business, old memories. But then Zyra changed the direction of the conversation. You remember my uncle? He said quietly. Vex nodded. Of course, a tragic loss. Zyra leaned forward. Do you ever think about that night? For the first time, Vex hesitated. Sometimes, he replied carefully. Zyra studied his face. Strange things happened that night, Zyra continued. People were in places they shouldn't have been. Vex forced a smile. What are you talking about? Zyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly placed a small photograph on the table. The same photograph he had found earlier. The one with the words written on the back. Everything begins tonight. Vex's eyes froze on the picture. For a brief moment, the confident mask he always wore disappeared. Zyra noticed it immediately. He had seen enough to know one thing. Vex was afraid, but Zyra was not finished. Not yet, because tonight was only the beginning of the trap. And before the night was over, Vex would start making the mistakes that would finally expose him. The photograph stayed on the table between them. For a few seconds, neither man spoke. Vex stared at it longer than he should have. Then he picked it up slowly, pretending to examine it casually. "Old memories," Vex said with a forced smile. "Why bring this up now?" Zyra watched him carefully. "Turn it over," Zyra said. Vex hesitated, but he did. The faded words on the back were still visible. "Everything begins tonight." Vex's fingers tightened slightly around the photograph. "Where did you find this?" he asked. "In my house," Zyra replied calmly, "hidden in a drawer that no one had opened in years." Vex placed the photograph back on the table. "You're digging through old things for no reason," he said. "The past is the past." Zyra leaned back in his chair. "Is it?" The tension between them grew heavier. Vex took a sip from his drink, trying to appear relaxed, but Zyra could see it now. The small changes in his behavior, the way his eyes moved more carefully, the way he seemed to measure every word before speaking. The confident man who always controlled every conversation was suddenly cautious. Zyra decided to push a little further. "You remember the night my uncle died?" he said quietly. Vex nodded slowly. "Everyone remembers that night." Zyra's eyes remained fixed on him. "Marcus remembers it too." The name hit Vex like a sudden shock. It was small, but Zyra saw it clearly. A quick flicker of fear. "Marcus?" Vex asked. "The man who called emergency services that night," Zyra replied. For a moment, Vex said nothing. Then he laughed lightly. "And what about him?" Zyra leaned forward. "He saw something." The air between them seemed to freeze. Vex's smile faded slightly. "Lots of people think they see things after accidents," he said. Zyra shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "He didn't imagine it." Vex's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you trying to say, Zyra?" Zyra looked directly into his eyes. "He saw your SUV." Silence. The restaurant noise around them suddenly felt distant. For the first time, Vex looked completely still, but he quickly recovered. "That's ridiculous," he said firmly. "I wasn't anywhere near that road." Zyra didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his jacket and placed another document on the table, a printed record. "Parking records from the old office garage," Zyra said calmly. Vex looked down at the paper. His name, his vehicle, black SUV, exited garage 10:12 p.m., the night of the accident. Vex slowly pushed the paper back toward Zyra. "This proves nothing," he said, but his voice was no longer confident. Zyra stood up from the table. "You're right," he said quietly. "It doesn't prove everything." Vex frowned. "Then why show it to me?" Zyra looked at him one last time before answering. "Because I wanted to see your reaction." Vex said nothing. Zyra walked toward the door of the restaurant. But before leaving, he turned back slightly. "There's one more thing you should know," he said calmly. Vex looked up. Zyra's voice was steady. Marcus wasn't the only witness. Vex's eyes widened slightly. Then Zyra left. For the first time in many years, Vex was no longer the man controlling the situation. The mask he had worn for so long was beginning to crack, and the deeper Zyra pushed, the closer Vex would come to making a mistake that could destroy him forever. After Zyra left the restaurant that night, Vex could no longer hide the fear growing inside him. For years, he had lived comfortably, believing the past was buried forever. But now, Zyra was digging deeper, uncovering pieces of a truth Vex thought no one would ever find. The pressure began to break him. 2 days later, Zyra sent Vex a message. "We need to talk one last time, tonight, Ridge Road, the same road where Zyra's uncle had died." Vex arrived late that night. The road was quiet, the darkness stretching across the empty hills. His black SUV stopped near the exact place where the accident had happened years before. Zyra stood beside the old barrier, but neither man spoke. "Vex, why brought me back here?" asked Zyra. "Vex, your truth began here," he replied. Zyra looked down the dark road. "I am the truth," he said. Vex's voice was tense. "You are chasing ghosts, Zyra," he continued. Zyra's voice was steady. "I know you were here the night Marcus discovered you stealing from the family business." Vex's jaw tightened. Zyra looked away. "I know," he said. "Vex, I followed you because I was threatened." Vex laughed bitterly. "I pushed his car off the road. The truth had become known." Vex looked at Zyra, expecting anger, outrage, but he saw only calm determination. Zyra left him alone, waiting for the police to arrive. Approached, arresting Vex. He shouted, "This changes anything?" Without answer, standing on the road where his uncle's grave was, he felt lighter after finally uncovering the secret that burdened him for years. Some secrets remain hidden for eternity, while others bury the truth deep within. However, the truth always prevails, and no secret can withstand.